Hi, this is Daniela Wolf with Bestie Life, the podcast, and this is your community to support you through the little and not so little events that make up your day-to-day life. From the I've got this moments to the I just can't moments. We are here to empower all women to find and develop the skills they need to find peace, balance, and the bliss in their busy. Through solo episodes as well as interviews with amazing women who share their journey and their story and how it works for you. I hope you find the inspirations to make you laugh, think, as well as maybe rethink what you thought you knew, and connect as we realize that we are all living similar ups and downs and don't have to do it alone. So excited for you to hear this episode, and thanks so much for joining me today. Hi, this is Daniela with Bestie Life, the podcast, and today I'm excited for you to meet Rebecca Doring. She helps wellness professionals with a bigger vision for their business who worry about being perfect, going from being frozen in imposter syndrome to teaching what they love and living their purpose. She's a meditation teacher, Chromatic Yoga Instructor, Inner Critic Coach, and host of the podcast, Inner Critic Freedom. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for joining me today.
I'm so excited to be here.
So I know that just kind of gives a small snapshot of what you do and how you help people, as well as just how you got here. So I would love for you to kind of share your journey with my listeners.
Sure, absolutely. I love to teach. My business originated from my own personal growth journey, and it continues to be an inspiration for me to keep doing this work. And then as I learn myself, I share with my students, with my clients, with my mentees. So for me, I came from the food industry and went into the wellness industry just out of a desire to heal myself. And I followed that path, still searching. I always felt called to do more. I was searching for an experience of feeling fulfilled and joyful and not just stressed all of the time or trying to just get through the day. And I was a massage therapist for a while. I became a yoga teacher, a meditation teacher. And eventually I started working with a mentor where I built a vision for an online business. And I had a desire to share my voice and help people in a more long-lasting way. Having been a massage therapist, I saw people come into me super stressed and they would feel better after just an hour. But I wished that I could hand them tools to be able to help themselves throughout all of that time in between seeing me. So I built this vision, but I kept getting stuck. I kept feeling frozen. I had this vision. I had a mentor. I knew the exact steps that I needed to take to bring this vision to life. But every single time I went to take action on it, I felt paralyzed. I would shut down. I would turn to other things. And my mentor, at the end of our mentorship, he said to me, "You have everything you need now. All you need to do is get out of your own way." And those words to me sunk in so deeply because I knew that that was the thing that was holding me back. I felt stuck in my own way, that I was my own worst enemy. So I then switched all of my attention to figuring out how to do that. And since then, I discovered my purpose, which I figured out how to get out of my own way for myself, and right away then started to teach others, breaking down that concept because it sounds so simple, just get out of your own way. But for some of us, it can feel so impossible. And so I learned how to do that. And that is what it turned out to be exactly what I needed, because now I love to teach others how to do that too.
Yeah. And sometimes I think it's a process and we expect a certain expectation. I was just listening to the book, Gap and the Gain, and it talks about how when we look at something and compare ourselves to the ideal versus our progress is where we start to feel some of that not enough, those feelings, the limiting beliefs of what we haven't achieved, as opposed to giving ourselves the credit for what we have done and looking at your process and how you wouldn't be where you are if you didn't go through it that way.
Oh my goodness, yes. That hits home. I like I said, I came from the food industry, and when I was in pastry school, I remember never knowing how to acknowledge the things that I actually did well. I only saw the flaws of my work, of my achievements. I didn't see them as achievements. I saw them as failures or just coming shy of perfection, never reaching perfection, obviously, because perfection is something that is a bit impossible to reach anyway.
Yeah, we never reach our ideal. Even when we reach our goals, that's always, when we look at the ideal, there's always what's next, as opposed to appreciating where we are in that journey.
Well, sure, yeah. I mean, as the expansion and evolution of our lives, the second you reach your goal and your highest potential, it's no longer your highest potential anymore. You've expanded.
Mm-hmm.
You have all of these new resources and skills and vision for what else is possible because this is now possible. So obviously, the next mountain to climb becomes available, and that's to me that's one of the greatest joys in life to be able to go into goal setting in that way and not beat ourselves up the whole time, but rather experience life and all that it has to offer, including ourselves and our gifts.
Right. And definitely, I think as, an inner critic coach, that's probably a lot of what you're helping. Those criticisms that we tell ourselves are based on that negative comparison, that not enough, those types of things.
100%. To me, the inner critic and feeling like getting stuck in imposter syndrome, beating ourselves up, this can create one of the biggest barriers to being able to up level in a way that feels fulfilling. We might be able to achieve the goal, but we might still feel unfulfilled because of what you've just been mentioning, that we don't acknowledge it. We just see the flaws. We just beat ourselves up. We just see, oh, now there's another impossible mountain to climb. Instead, if we learn to manage the inner critic and turn toward ourselves in self-compassion, in kindness, in connection, we can then experience the fullness of life through the journey of goal setting and achievement.
Definitely. And as someone who's listening to this episode and they're hearing this concept and it sounds great, what is kind of the first place you typically start someone at? Where's that beginning point of making this transformation?
Sure. The first step in like the first action step.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, when they come to you, they're like, I feel like I'm an imposter. What's kind of that first trigger point of this is where we're going to start?
My very first tool that I share, and I share it often, all the time, because it's something that I use all the time. And if you do nothing but this one thing, it can be incredibly transformational in many areas of your life. And it's very simple. It's shifting into curiosity. We cannot be judgmental and curious at the same time. So the simple act of getting curious allows us to stop judging ourselves, stop resisting how we feel, stop fighting ourselves every step of the way, and instead getting curious about all of these things. I love to imagine that I'm becoming an explorer. An explorer does not seek to resist what they find, or judge what they find, or try to change what they find, or fix what they find. They just want to discover what is. And they want to learn as much information as they can with a sense of wonder, of exploration, of curiosity. So this is always the first step, is getting curious about your patterns, getting curious about your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, getting curious about your desire, your why. It can go in so many different directions depending on what it is that we're working with specifically.
Right. Because absolutely, that is going to be an individual process for each person to get through that point of figuring out their why. I do have it's almost like a totally different question, but as I'm reading, your bio, I love different types of yoga. I do yin, I do kundalini, I do all sorts of stuff. And I've never heard of chromatic yoga before. Can you share a little bit about what that is? I'm just personally curious even.
Yeah, absolutely. Chromatic yoga was created by my mentor, Matt Giordano, also known as the Yogi Matt on Instagram. And it is a type of yoga that combines education and technique and intention. So we're very, very intentional about the practice of yoga. Everything has a purpose, everything has an outcome, and it's more of a methodology than than like yin or ashtanga or kundalini. Those are very specific types of yoga. This is more of a methodology of yoga itself. And it allows you to explore your body to gain greater awareness, greater use of your body. It's incredible. Highly recommend finding a chromatic yoga class.
All right. I'm definitely going to Google that after we get off and try and find some videos because I think, as I've done yoga over the years, and I don't know if you've seen this with your clients, it's a constant, even when you think, okay, I've been doing this for a while, I know what I'm doing, I'm good at it, there's always something I'm still learning. Like this is one of those practices that I love the fact that I'm still growing, I'm still a student of, even after years of practice.
100%. And that is actually a huge factor in chromatic yoga because we break things down very simply, that it's like one tiny little change can change your experience. One tiny little action, tiny little awareness cue can change your entire experience of a pose in a brand new way. Even if you've been practicing it for 30 years, it can bring a new understanding, a new empowerment within that part of your body, and then within the greater whole of yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, this might be a weird analogy. It gets me thinking almost a little bit about my golf game as well. Like I can play the same course for years and years and years, and every round will be different, even though I know, where that dip is in the hole, where the green kind of runs a little fast. There's still always that growth of every time's going to be different, and allowing for that and giving yourself grace, because it's never going to be perfect and you're still kind of going through the process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's actually, being a chromatic yoga teacher is a huge part of my world, or of my business. And my business could be considered chromatic in philosophy because everything is very step by step and intentional. And when we understand the why, when we understand the outcome, when we understand the intention, then we can make choices. We have better choices to go about specific things. So I love it.
And then how does the meditation fit into that as well in this process? Because, you use all these different modalities. Like, where does that help?
So good. The meditation is a tool. To me, I love teaching meditation and I love practicing meditation, but meditation itself is a practice that does help dissolve the inner critic on its own without actually having to intentionally think about it.
Mm-hmm.
The process of sitting down, closing our eyes, and meditating, I bet listeners might be able to relate to this if you've ever tried meditation, creates a lot of inner critic chatter. Yeah. Second you start to meditate, it's like all the racing thoughts come and you're thinking about everything, and maybe the inner critic chimes in, or maybe you're just thinking about your lunch that you're going to have. It goes wild. And what's actually happening there, which is a very misunderstood process. Most of us experience that. And then the inner critic gets louder, thinking, oh, I must be doing meditation wrong. I must be failing at this. This isn't working. What's actually happening is that's a sign that the meditation is working. It's a sign that you have released stress. So as the body is meditating, it sends a signal to release stress, and then that triggers a wave of thought. So as you release stress and tension from the body and the mind, we are connecting to the true self. And I see the inner critic as like stories and mud and layers that are blocking ourselves, our true selves, who we really are. And the process of meditation allows you to reconnect to who you really are underneath the inner critic. So when I work with my clients, meditation is often a tool, one part of the greater whole in helping you align with who you really are, because that is ultimately the work, is understanding and connecting with the truth of who you are, and recognizing that those stories inside of your mind are just lies in an attempt to keep you safe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And absolutely. I call them the mean girls in your head. That's my name for them, because it is just a bunch of lies and things that are not true about yourself. But the fact that their voice is going to be louder and more powerful than, what other people tell you, that's obviously the part where it can hold you back the most, whether it's in your job, in your business, in life, taking a risk, starting a new journey, all those types of things. So getting through that part, I'm sure, is incredibly powerful in getting over that transition.
Sure, absolutely. And through the process of meditation, we naturally, those voices get a little bit quieter, or even more importantly, we start to see the separation. Because when we're not meditating, we often believe that we are our thoughts. And we're so immersed in our thoughts and our emotions. But the second you start to meditate, you are witnessing them. And if you're witnessing them, you are not them. It's like realizing that you're watching a movie. that those moments when you're so engrossed in a movie and it feels like you are in this movie. And then you realize, oh, wait a second. No, I'm just sitting in my living room. I'm a different person. This story is not me. That is what can happen in meditation. That is what does happen in meditation.
Right. No, that's amazing. So just to kind of peek behind the curtain a little bit, because a lot of times as practitioners, we do these things, we have these practices like I teach on burnout and self-care, but I think being able to coach and teach somebody else and practice sometimes, it's always good to know like we're not perfect, right? So how do you integrate this though in your life, or what works for you when it comes to staying grounded in your purpose and who you are?
Mm. Well, for me, the nature of what I do was born from my own practice.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the way I continue to teach and run my business is from turning within myself first and then teaching from that place. So, in order to keep being successful in my business and helping people, I need to do my practices. Otherwise, I don't have anything to teach. And so I'm really grateful for that because it's kind of it's motivating and inspiring to keep doing my own work. But the practices that I do are the ones that I teach. I wake up every morning, I meditate, and I journal. And those two things with very specific journaling practices to help me transform my energy, my mindset, my emotional state to be aligned with my goals for the day. And I meditate in the afternoon most times. My morning one is the ironclad. The afternoon is more of an as needed. And I also have habits of I'm a runner, and I love being outside and I prioritize those things because when I don't prioritize those things, then for me, my patterns quickly go to worry and overwhelm and the inner critic. So those things get really loud. And so I know that if I'm not doing my practices, they will cloud everything and I won't be able to help anyone.
Right. And I loved the things you said just based on the pillars that they hit, because there are a lot of the ones that I talk about. And so even though we're a little bit different fields, when it comes to preventing burnout, you have time planning, you have habits, you have routines, and you have priorities, which are key foundations, regardless of how you're applying them, to whether it's as a sports trainer, as a meditation and yoga practitioner, as a coach, as all those kind of things. Those are some key foundations that I think anyone can use for success.
I love that so much. Yes, habits and time management are a huge portion of what I teach as well, because those areas, the inner critic can definitely get loud and stop us from doing the things that we need to do. And being able to maintain consistency and find joy in desired habits is what allows us to have the results and keep maintaining those processes. So yeah, I love all of that work as well. So much fun.
That's awesome. Another area that I love to talk about is gratitude, because I think that's such an underappreciated part of self-care, but yet can be so powerful, probably especially with that inner critic work. And I always ask my guests, what are some of the top 2 to 3 things that you're the most grateful for?
For me, the gratitude is a huge part of my daily practice. And actually, my biggest fear in life is to take my life and the things and the people for granted. And because of that fear, I'm actually grateful for that fear in an interesting way because it inspires me to be grateful every day. And so the things that I'm most grateful for is that fear, I guess. I'm going to go with that. I'm grateful for that fear because it inspires me to slow down, to do what I need to do, to set aside stress so that I can see my husband when he comes home and walks through the door. So I can see that he's a human and not just be lost in my own cloudy, stressful thoughts. And absolutely grateful for these practices that enable me to experience what I have, life itself, nature, all the other things, the abundance of things that I'm so grateful for.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, because I think we always think gratitude and being the things we're grateful for come from the perfect moments, but I think recognizing the day-to-day stuff is just as powerful.
If not even more so. My favorite gratitude practice, I'll share really quick, is to ask, yes, what are the 3 things that I'm grateful for? And then follow it up with the question, why do I feel grateful for this specifically today. So for example, if I say I'm grateful for my husband, that sounds great. And then I might just move on naturally to my next thing. But if I say, why do I feel grateful for him today specifically? Now, all of a sudden, my brain is going over all of the interactions that I've had with him today, all of the thoughts, all of the feelings, and I'm thinking about today. I'm here now. And I remember a beautiful moment that we shared before he left for work. It was very simple, very quick. I could easily take it for granted, but that question allowed me to tune in and enjoy it and be here now and feel that connection.
Well, and I don't know, I think a little bit too, then as you're saying that, I think sometimes like we say, like my kids, my health, my, spouse, all those kind of things. And we do kind of gloss over the why. And there might be a why. You might be like, you know what? They bugged me today. I love them and I'm grateful for them, but I'm putting something else, because I think if we don't actively look for that why of what we're grateful for, it doesn't have the same power potentially as really that why, because like you said, having that why is to what you're doing and why, we're engaged in these activities is where we get our energy, our momentum. That's where that self-care piece comes from. Simon Sinek starts with why, all those types of things. So looking at that why can help not only validate why something's on the list, but to look at, what, today, this is what I'm putting on there. Because even though we love and we appreciate those things, on any given day, you're going to waver back and forth on things.
Sure. Yeah. I think also there's a tendency of, I should put my kids, I should put my husband, I should put my house. And so that's not really the point of the exercise. The point is to get us to get out of the stress pattern, get out of the just autopilot of the day and slow down and see what we actually have now. I'll say one more thing that I love to, if there is something that I'm really wanting that I feel like I don't have, I love asking myself, how do I have this already in my life? And how am I grateful for that? And that then brings your mind to come up with all of the evidence of all the things that you actually do have, because brains love to answer questions and they will answer any question we ask them. We just tend to automatically ask the negative ones.
Right. So how can people find you, Rebecca? Where can they see you on social media or work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. On social media, they can find me, Rebecca Doring Meditation. My podcast, Inner Critic Freedom, there's a episode specifically that could be beneficial to our conversation. That is episode 161, Why You're Frozen and How to Move Forward. So if anyone is interested in continuing on this topic and hearing a little bit more, if they are resonating with my story of feeling frozen, that episode could be really helpful for them.
Awesome. And I will definitely put the links for that in the show notes below so that they can access it. So thank you so much, Rebecca. I've loved our chat today.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to have been here.
Thanks so much again for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please let me know any questions or comments that you have. Also, if you can please leave an Apple 5-star review so that this episode can be shared with more women. There's 2 quotes that I love. Alone we may be strong, but together we are stronger, as well as when women support each other, incredible things happen. So let's be stronger and incredible together, as well as maybe just have some fun along the way. Thanks so much and talk to you soon. Bye.